All right, we're back in the car, so you know what that means. It's time for another review of a recently released movie. This time it is The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright and written by Michael Bacall and Edgar Wright, and it stars Glen Powell, Alyssa Ben, Sienna Ben, David Zayas. The credits are in this weird Lee Pace, Coleman Domingo, and Josh Brolin. Do you even see them listed on this?
I thought I saw Lee Pace there.
Lee Pace, where are Coleman Domingo and Josh Brolin?
Well, that's weird.
Anyways, as always, we're going to begin. The IMDb page is currently awkwardly set up. We're going to begin, as always, with a brief non-spoiler review. Shayde, I'm sorry, I'm used to doing this with Shayde.
Nice try.
Dad, what did you think of The Running Man?
I would say if you are looking for an adaptation of Stephen King's, was it a short story or a novel?
You're the one who read it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's I think it's part of a collection, so it might be a novella. But anyways, if you're looking for an adaptation of that, this is your movie. If you're looking for a remake of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that we both love because we reviewed it in the past,
it's a great time.
it's not that. It's not a remake of that. I have to say, with the trailers, we kind of discussed. We were a little nervous that maybe everything that you saw in the trailers was going to be the movie, but I feel like the movie was more than that. I feel like the movie was it was an entertaining watch, not just for the Edgar Wright action, but I think it was a good watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree. A quick Wikipedia search shows that it is a novel with 219 pages.
Okay.
Glad we got that out of the way. No, I agree. It was really fun. This is one that I was very excited for based off of the trailers. And like we talked about before, we've been seeing trailers for this for months. The hype was definitely real, and it lived up to it. It was certainly an enjoyable time. Glen Powell, I thought, was really good. I was a little hesitant, to be honest, but
yeah, I know him from I saw Twisters because I saw Twister back in the day, so we went and saw that one. I know he's been into a rom-com recently, or so, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I too was a little bit nervous. I think of Edgar Wright, and we think of some of the actors that he's had in his movies. He can probably work with that. Mm-hmm. So I think it worked out great.
Yeah, definitely. I think by and large, the casting of the show was good. I thought the pacing of it was really fun. And I had a really good time watching it. And it's definitely one that I kind of want to see again.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about spoilers. So we will see you guys back in the studio. Now let's roll the intro. That means it's time to go ahead and jump into spoilers. So, Dad, the first thing I want to ask is, you read the book, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I've read it recently. Or audiobooks, yeah.
Yeah, well, that counts.
I'm reading with my ears. It's
sure.
Fun.
Now, how does this, because we've talked before, obviously, the first one, the Arnold one did not match up at all. How do you think this one compares?
It was a good adaptation. Now, I don't know how far we want to go for spoilers. I'll say this right here. The bit with is it Michael Cera where he goes to the house with the old lady and stuff?
Yes.
That was not necessarily part of the book.
Okay.
I mean, he met up with a guy, the black market guy at the beginning, in the book, and then he's just kind of on the run, and it does culminate with him taking a hostage, a lady in the car, kind of the same kind of thing, an upper class lady, and getting on the plane and that sort of thing. So, I mean, that adaptation worked out well, and that bit of the story did. Now, I can see why they threw in the whole middle part there with the Michael Cera and stuff in order to, give it more, maybe, I suppose. That's one thing I do have to say is I think that this movie, we had talked going into it. With seeing the trailers, I was a little nervous we're just going to get this slick action thing, right? But I think that the movie did good to adapt the actual story. In the book, they talk about how the company's pumping out the chemicals and that's everybody's getting sick off that, and that kind of thing. And they do the same thing where he tries to pass it on in his tapes because that's an aspect of the book. And of course, they do their stuff to edit that out. And, of course, in the book, all they do is clever edit.
Sure.
But here they can whole deep fake a whole thing, and stuff. But
well, yeah, that's the difference 30 years will make.
right. You have more technologies for how to fake what somebody's saying now than you used to. But yeah, it actually is a real good adaptation. Now, I don't know how much you want me to spoil about the ending of the book, but it does end slightly different.
Okay. Maybe we'll save that.
We'll save that with a warning. How about
yeah,
that?
we'll do that right at the end in like the final thoughts or something. So like we talked about in the non-spoiler section, I was really excited for this, but kind of like you, I expected it was just going to be like a stupid, fun action movie. I was more excited for this than I was for Predator Badlands, but I kind of had the same thing where I was going into it thinking it's going to be fun to watch, but it's probably not going to be that great of a movie. And in both cases, I think I was pretty proven wrong. I felt like there was more to this than I was expecting, and I really liked that about it.
Right, and I think that so we have talked before. I think we talked about it in The Long Walk, but the Bachman books are a different type of Stephen King. It is everything's dark, nothing's really cheery about them, and that sort of thing. And even though this movie brings in a little bit of the the fun comedy. I mean, I see it's labeled as a dark comedy there on IMDb. It brings in some of that entertainment value to it. There is still the darkness, everything's not very good. We're not going to have nothing good's going to come out of this at all kind of feeling that the Bachman books do. And I think that when you're reading a Stephen King or a Richard Bachman version of Stephen King, you definitely get that. And I think that this movie did a good job of, in the parts that you don't see in the trailer, because like I said, what we see in the trailer is the fun action stuff. But in the parts that you don't see in the trailer are the bits of the book that I think really come through.
Mm-hmm. I do think there's some pretty interesting like character development done for most of the side characters, even though we like barely see them at all. Who are the little boy and his older brother who help him. I don't even know what their names are. Looking at the cast list is probably not going to help.
IMDb is not good with this movie for some reason. However they labeled it in the credits is really throwing it off.
Yeah. Oh well, the specifics of that are not necessarily important, but I thought they were fun. And even though again we only see them for like 10 minutes maybe, it does a good job of developing those people into mostly, complete characters.
Right.
And it does a good job of using that to sort of push the story forward.
Right. And you're kind of paralleling the two stories because they have a sister, younger sister, daughter with cancer, and his daughter, like I said, like they do it the same thing in the book where it really is that she just has the flu, but because of this dystopian future, you can't get even basic meds to take care of something that we, can eradicate, get over pretty well. Obviously there's still people that die from the flu, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Normally the flu in a young child is not a death sentence.
Sure.
Right.
But give them some chicken soup and they're good.
That's right. A little bit of chicken soup for the soul. But they, in this instance, it's got this. And that was one thing I did enjoy about the movie too, towards the beginning, is when he crosses over through that gate and he has to state his purpose that he's going to the network for tryouts. There's a visible, you can see, that change in class right away when he's going into that section that's all walled off and stuff. You can tell how they're showing the separation of classes just in that case, let alone when we get to later when he's got the lady in the car as a hostage or whatever.
Definitely. Yeah, it's really stark to see the difference between the co-ops, which obviously in the beginning we spend a decent amount of time just like in the set of his apartment and in his workplace, and then to go to the network buildings, and then back to the co-ops when we meet the kid and his brother, whose names I still don't know. And
That's
then
too bad.
we don't really see that many cars in the movie until we get to the end where he kidnaps whatever her name is. Man, this is not going very well.
We should. Well, the actress's name was Katy something, which I think she was in that Twisters movie with him. Katy O'Brian. There it is.
Oh, well, that's the other contestant.
Right.
Who knows?
I lost track of things.
I don't know. I have no idea what the kidnappers or what the kidnapped lady's name is. Either the actor or the character. That's I guess that's kind of a problem with this movie is that everybody who isn't Ben Richards is kind of like unforgettable.
And I wonder if if that is one of the products of the fact that it is a shorter novella, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Except for Molly, because they mention his name multiple times. I
Right.
mean, and he plays a part in the beginning. They have a sort of a deep emotional thing there when he first signs up for the Running Man, and then we see the whole torture scene. And then he mentions Molly's name again when he tries to pull off his whole hostage play.
Right. And it is interesting, too. It's the tragic bit about it. He can't find a job or whatever. But then, right then, that guy was going to take him on or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, now that seemed a little convenient. But it's like, I think you could have said something. But then again, I guess there's not a lot of access to telephones. Who knows? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, there's clearly somewhere in their apartment building, there's a video phone.
Right.
Because that's how, whatever the wife's name is, that's how she talks to him when he first signs up. So there's some ability there. Now, it's probably super expensive, but still, I would imagine at the very least, for them to be this close, they kind of have to live relatively close by. He could have just walked over. I mean, Ben Richards didn't have a job for what, like a week? I don't know.
I did kind of lose track. It looked like, yeah, he'd blown through a few jobs, which I don't know if that, I don't know. And I don't know if we ever got any growth out of that necessarily.
Not really.
You would think that maybe there's a little bit of character growth there about how he keeps on screwing up and losing jobs. But then again, like you say, I think what they're trying to point out is the whole, he's losing his jobs because he's helping other people, and that's of course not cost prohibitive to spend your time helping other people, right?
Right.
Or they had the one, little clip there where he saves somebody. Probably cheaper to let the guy die because you can just hire somebody new in that instance or something like that.
Right. Well, and especially when they mention that one of his insubordination claims was about him reporting unsafe work conditions, right?
Right.
So not only is he helping other people, he's directly going against the views of the network is the word that they use.
Right.
So that is interesting. Yeah, there could have been something there. They played on it a little bit with like the reason his insubordination, it's the reason that he's a star because he doesn't really care about what anybody else thinks. And it's the reason that he can do all these amazing things because he's worked these hard blue collar jobs or whatever. And then it also, they use the deep fake, one of the alleged, I don't know if it was a deep fake, but they claimed that he was selling secrets to the communists or whatever.
Right.
Now I don't remember if that's an actual clip, like it's something else and they said it was this.
I think that was I think that was his whistleblower moment.
Oh.
And I'm sure they edited it, to look a certain way, and they just kind of threw that out there. If we go back to the original Running Man that we have discussed before, they have the whole thing where Ben Richards or whatever isn't shooting. He's trying to stop the shooting of the civilians in the food riot or whatever, and then they flip it around to where he's actually doing the shooting and and that sort of thing. So I think it's kind of a play off that in that way. So
I completely forgot that was an aspect of that movie. That was crazy.
Well, that was why he's in prison, which then it becomes not the book anymore because he's doing it because he's in prison. Yeah, but. That was cool. I think, we got to rewatch that one again.
I do think it is interesting because we'd already talked about the long walk once this episode. It's interesting the sort of, it's kind of like the same mindset in these two stories that they're both sort of like game showified things about people being on the run or on the walk. But in the case of the long walk, the way that he portrays it is you are these young men who are signing up for this for the greater good of the country to boost morale or whatever.
Right.
And in The Running Man, it's like, oh, these are the worst of the worst. These are criminals. They're freeloaders. They're this, that, or the other. They're doing this because they want the money so that they don't have to work another day in their lives.
It's a slight stretch. I mean, obviously, we love Amazing Race. We love our Survivor. It's a small leap to now think that is some sort of a corporal punishment or something like that, where we are pulling in criminals or that kind of thing, and I think that we saw this on, I think there was a Black Mirror episode that was the same kind of thing, where it's like you do these game shows, which are extreme. You know, the
Oh yeah.
the hamster wheel guy or whatever was doing the running on the hamster wheel to earn cash and stuff like that. That's a direct knockoff of some of them Japanese game shows and stuff that they have.
For sure. I think this is the Black Mirror episode we're talking about with Daniel Kaluuya.
Yes.
Anyways, I thought that was a fun little thing. It was definitely kind of weird. Some of the game show stuff I did enjoy, like the way that they modeled like the hamster wheel and the way that they modeled the Running Man and stuff like that. But then when we talk about the older brother or whatever, the Apostle, that's what his moniker is.
That's right.
I hated that so much. Like, I get why you do it. It's a nice little expo dump. It's setting the stakes or whatever, and why the network, blah, blah, blah. I hated the editing style of it. It felt, again, like everything else of this world is like near future, like I think Edgar Wright said it's supposed to be like the day after tomorrow or something
Right.
like that. So it's supposed to be near future. But that felt so very much 90s. It just felt like such a massive tone shift.
They definitely had some ideas there where it was sort of it was a throwback to when the book, or when the Arnold Schwarzenegger one was. I mean, we kind of talked about it. They had the dancers come out and stuff, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think I saw somewhere that the outfits the dancers were wearing are actually patterned off the ones that were in the Arnold movie and stuff. So it's like they are taking that that future as if it was the future from a place that died off in the 80s or 90s,
Right.
or started the downfall around then. And like you said, the same thing, we kind of saw that a little bit with The Long Walk, which they never really say where we're at, but you could see in The Long Walk being a world where, around the around the Vietnam War was when growth stopped because it became dystopian for some reason, right? Whatever happened around then. So we don't have the advancements we have today and that sort of thing, or all of the advancements in the idea of the Running Man are for this network that's trying to use this to control people or something like that, and I think that that's a different way of looking at things. If we ever get around to RoboCop,
Oh, yes.
which that's Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven was real big on that kind of dystopian, the ads are terrible, that kind of thing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is that Starship Troopers, or is that somebody else?
I think he did that too. I think you're right. I think that was a Verhoeven thing. But it's very similar where you are, taking that idea and stretching out what the worst, what the way that things are now, what the worst way they could go, right? And then using that as satire.
Yeah, the logical conclusion taken to its worst ends. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sort of into stuff like that sometimes. I mean, I think it's really interesting. I'm a big fan of dystopian stories already. I mean, Cyberpunk is a great game. I love Brave New World and 1984, and all those stories are fun. But yeah, all of those feel timeless. And in some ways, not RoboCop. In some ways, The Running Man feels almost timeless. But then it's when you get those nods, those nostalgia nods, like with The Apostle, where I'm like, okay, this takes me out of it a little bit.
Right.
Because I'm not focusing on the dystopia. I'm focusing on whatever this weird editing style is.
Well, and I think that some of that, to me, when I was watching, when we were watching the movie and I saw that the Apostles editing style, it's like, oh, this is how an old man thinks YouTube looks, right?
Yeah.
This is somebody who somebody who doesn't watch YouTube that often, who thinks that all the crazy YouTube skits, your YouTube videos are this editing style because that hits the algorithm, and that kind of thing.
Or
right?
somebody who watched YouTube, but only from like 2009 to 2013.
Right.
In that specific time frame. And look, the first time we see the Apostle video, I give it a little bit of leeway. But then when it showed up at the end, that is the one where I was like, okay, now I really hate this.
Right.
Because one, the second one is so expo dumpy. And two, I don't need to see this. When that video came on, I was like, just show me like the actual world.
Right.
Like tell me the same information, but show me it playing out in the world.
Yes.
Rather than this weird video.
Right. It's it is kind of setting the point of view of that bit of it. And when we get to spoilers, we can discuss that. Or future big spoiler. We're in spoiler section.
Yeah.
In the big spoiler section.
Well,
we can discuss that a little bit.
I'd say we could talk about all spoilers except for the book related spoilers.
Well, that's the book related.
Okay,
stuff,
well,
so
never
we'll get
mind.
to that in a little bit. Let's hold off on that slightly. So.
Okay, I have to say about the actual ending of this movie. In some ways, I enjoy it, and in some ways, I'm really not a fan of it. Like it seemed to me like when they storm the network building, when Ben Richards storms the network building, that to me felt out of place. Because in my head, I was like, this doesn't really feel like what he would do at this point. This feels like and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you feel differently, but to me, it was like you added this because there's that really awesome line in the trailer where he's like, I'm going to burn this thing down.
It to me, that kind of comes back to, that's where, if we were to talk about this being a reboot of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, that bit is. You know what I'm saying? That feels like that. Because in the Arnold movie, we have him coming back and killing off the game show host. I forget his name. Dawson. Richard Dawson.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, we have that scene where he comes back to the studio and they kill everyone off and you know, and that kind of thing. So that felt like the callback, or that felt like the part where they were trying to redo the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, where the rest of it felt like it was the Bachman.
Oh, speaking of the game show guy, I wanted to ask, at the end, does Coleman Domingo get shot by Killian? Is that what happens? Or does he walk out?
I think somehow he had something in his contract.
That's right.
He said something about his contract, and it is just the FU. But I guarantee there must be some other wording in that contract that got him out of getting shot. And that was realized, or you know, they picked that up enough, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't show him getting shot or anything. And maybe that's because all of a sudden that's when stuff escalated, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that was supposed to be, so help me out with that. That was supposed to be like the next season premiere, right? That was when they were starting the next season. So there was supposed to be some bit of a time jump, it felt like.
Well, I think, how quickly does that take place after? I mean, the scene is immediately after the plane explosion. Yeah, that's a good question.
I think that if you're listening at some point, when Coleman Domingo does walk out there, he's saying something about this season, you know, because they had talked about that was the final run of that season that our hero was in. So I think that they're trying to say that there was a little bit of a time shift and this is a new season kicking off.
Well, is it the new season, or is this like the postseason recap, I guess?
That's where it kind of lost me. There was definitely a little bit of a time shift, I believe. But yeah.
It was interesting, though. The interaction between Josh Brolin and Coleman Domingo was interesting there, where Coleman Domingo was like, hey, you wanted to make him a star. This is what happens. This is his show now.
Right.
And they show everybody holding the Richards Lives signs. I
that's what I think it was, is I think they were trying to just start a new season, but they realized at that point they can't because of what was going on. I think that's where I'm agreeing with you, that I don't necessarily like the way the ending of this was cut together, because I feel like my take on it was that this was, okay, he died in a plane crash, but then the apostle guy puts out his video and says, no, he didn't. And I feel like this has been like at least a few months of people living with that conspiracy theory. And when it comes back, that's all they're curious about. You know, it's like people who come back to a series expecting you come back to Game of Thrones, wondering what happened in the big cliffhanger of the last, you know, the final episode. And then it doesn't come back the way they want. Right. And I think that's what they were trying to show, is that they're just trying to start up a new season, and they probably had new contestants or whatever planned and ready to go, but nobody was into it anymore because they liked the idea of a martyr, you know, or somebody coming back and fighting the power. I think that's what we're supposed to get from it. But I agree with you. I didn't really like the way that they wrapped this up and ended it, because I don't think it played that out very well.
It was definitely one of those situations where they were like, okay, well, we've got this. Now we just need to wrap it all up in a bow. And I don't know if that part quite pulled it off. But about that ending, there's one thing in particular that I really, really liked, and this is a very nitpicky thing, but I liked how they tied the phrase Richards lives into the theme of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, when they're chanting and it's like Richards lives, it's the same tempo and the notes or whatever. I love when they do that. It's one of the reasons, I'm going to go on a nerd tangent here. It's one of the reasons why the 77 or 78 Superman theme and why Superman the animated series and it might be the Fleischer animated, I don't know, there's another animated series where the theme songs are so good because when if you listen to it, the notes are going Superman, Superman, and it fits. It just, I don't know, there's something about that.
Just nailed it.
Yeah. Anyways, I love that aspect. It was a stupid thing. I liked the music throughout this entirely, but then when we got to that end point and it linked with the chant, I was like, whoever wrote this is amazing.
Well, and I think that we talk about James Gunn and his music, his needle drops, right, where he's pulling in obscure 70s music, and then it becomes a hit because it works out well in the movie and stuff. And I think that if I remember, and maybe I'm just thinking, we talked before about Edgar Wright a little bit, and I'd seen Baby Driver, and Baby Driver was a movie that did a very similar thing to that. It was a slick action car, kind of thing, heist kind of thing, and it had music in it because it was part of the movie, because the driver, and I can't even remember who it was, but he needs that music to concentrate while he's driving.
Ansel Elgort.
Right, that's who it was. But so I think that Edgar Wright kind of has a reputation similar to James Gunn, where he is pulling in music and has a musical way of looking at scenes in that way. You know what I'm saying?
I think it works out here mostly because I think the good thing about this movie is that there were some of those needle drops, but they weren't all the time.
Right.
There was like 2 or 3 maybe, but most of the time it was just the soundtrack to the show.
And I think that what I liked about it is I recognized some of it. Like he was sampling things from, and the trailer, I think it's the How Do You Like Me Now song or whatever. And that, it's one of them songs that just kind of gets in your head, right?
Yeah, an earworm.
Yeah, and you're kind of feeling it and that kind of thing. And I think that there are, if you're listening close to the music in this movie, he's sampling those beats that old guys like me recognize, right? In that case. And I think that I think it worked out pretty well, because every once in a while I'd think, oh, he's going to go into that song, but no, he was just sampling a bit of it in the soundtrack or in the music in the movie score, which I kind of like.
All right, so we're going to slowly begin to wind things down here. Dad, who do you think is the best actor in The Running Man?
Okay, Glen Powell is our main actor. I don't know. There were times where I felt like he was a little off. Like he didn't quite match up. And I don't know if that's just me kind of projecting on him that he's the hip new cool thing. and sometimes that annoys me. I don't know. We talked William H. Macy. I always like him, but he was doing his William H. Macy thing. But I thought that was a subtle shift for him when he did the thing. And then he's like, well, I had to. And he's like, no, you didn't, because I was going to do this. Right. And I just like the way that William H. Macy does that kind of stuff. Do I have to say William H. Macy all the time? Mr. Macy?
Mr. Macy? You
Bill.
can call him Big Will.
I'll just call him Bill. I like the way that he did that. Now, he had I wouldn't have minded more. I wouldn't have minded if the Michael Cera part was actually him going back.
That would have been cool.
Or something like that to William H. Macy, because but that's probably because I like him. So
yeah, I think that would have been interesting. And then you could have, I feel like, they sort of just played up that torture scene for 10 seconds and then they just like moved on past it. This was definitely a movie where it's like, we are literally running to the next destination, to the next sequence. So there really can't be all that much tying these things together.
Well, and to be honest, at one point I kind of wondered whether that torture scene actually happened, because now obviously they do find him at the hotel. But, right after that torture scene, they actually show the guy coming into the room, sticking the gun to his head. And I thought that they were trying to tell us that that was just a dream sequence that he was having, like, oh crap,
Right. That's
this
true.
is what's going to happen. But then they do show up at the hotel, I think. I don't know. You know what? They never do show up at that hotel because he tells the clerk that he wants to pay for 3 more days or whatever, and then he takes off, and they never show up at that hotel. So I'm still wondering.
Is it it's the next place that they show up?
They show up at the place. It's the fake YMCA or whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
but does he use the same name, or does he make no, because he's the priest there.
No, because when he's at the YMCA, it was just some homeless guy. He used who was standing by and he used that guy's room or whatever. So that's
okay.
That's the interesting bit there is I don't know, and they show this torture scene, and but they never show up with that identity.
Right, but then at the end, maybe he's just making an assumption, because at the end he says, "I guess Molly didn't tell you everything," when he's like, "I've got black Irish or English, black
right,
English,
black Irish, yeah.
whatever the explosive is." He's
right.
like, "Guess Molly didn't tell you everything." Maybe they didn't even know to go
that's
to
the
him.
Thing. They probably were right then thinking, "Who's Molly?" No, I see. That's the thing is I don't know. Because I thought in my head at the time I was like, "Oh, maybe this was all just a little dream thing," because I don't feel like they use any information they would have got from him to find him. But I could be wrong on that. So.
Well, they do, because there's a scene where they show the fake ID and they match Ben Richards' normal ID to it. But I don't remember if that's the same ID that he gets from Molly or if that's a different one.
And that's, again, I can't remember if that's in that. That's where the editing of this movie I did have a couple things with, because I still think that is all there. There's that little section where they're torturing Molly. They're finding this name, and then they show up in his hotel room there, and the one hunter puts the gun to his head, and then he wakes up. So I'm trying to decide whether that is all just oh crap, they're going to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because then he just leaves. And I don't know. That's where, and then again, between that section right there and then the ending, I did not like the way those were all edited together. This
is one of those moments where I'm like, man, I wish I had seen the movie a second time so I can clarify some of those details that I'm forgetting. Because it's so fast paced. There's so much going on that it really all starts to kind of like blur together after. Right. I mean, it's only been a day, but still. I really liked William H. Macy. I do agree. I wish he had a larger role. I don't like Michael Cera in general, so I'm sort of biased against that. His parts were fun, though.
Yeah.
The hot dog cart was interesting. It was a really long sidebar.
They build it up with the "don't ask about the hot dogs" or whatever. Yeah, he still did. I don't know.
It would have. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I think I'm actually gonna go for my best actor. It's tough because I like Coleman Domingo. I obviously like Brolin. I'd agree there was some awkward moments for Glen Powell in this, but I largely enjoyed him. I think I'm gonna go Lee Pace.
Yeah,
because I like Lee Pace. I thought, once he's got in the beginning, well, for the whole first 2/3 of the movie or whatever, when he's got the mask on, there's really not much going on there. He's got some dialogue, but there's nothing too crazy. But then once he takes the mask off and they're on the plane and stuff, I was like, okay, this is actually kind of interesting. I kind of like that. I hate this guy.
That's when he got his chance to act too. Towards the end, when he realizes he's getting sold out, right? That kind of thing. I think that's when his character you really see his character do something, right?
Well, and the reveal of him being like, hey, I was that guy from the first season who almost made it the whole time.
I wondered about that.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to be until they burn you? And then, eventually just, he spends the whole movie just kowtowing to Killian. And then at that last moment, he's like, I don't care, dude. This guy has messed me up. You tried to give him my job. So he's kind of doing the same thing as Ben Richards. He's like, I'm going to burn it all down. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get this guy. I thought that was an interesting turn. And I don't know how much of that is lifted from the book, if anything. But I thought it was some interesting character development.
It was. I liked Lee Pace and the way that he played that character and the way that character was written in the movie.
So, Dad, what do you think is the best scene in the movie?
I don't know. So I guess you've got to I don't necessarily know. Okay, when he goes in and talks to his boss towards the beginning, and he brings the daughter in,
Mm-hmm.
and I do have to say that I like that foreman that he's from the show Dexter,
Oh,
and we
okay.
just got done catching up on all of that, and stuff. So that actor, I like him. Yeah, David Zayas. Um, I kind of like that scene where he's coming in there, and it's the you think that he's bringing in the daughter just to
Guilt trip him.
guilt trip him, but then it's the other way around. He's bringing him in because he ain't going to start a fight with his daughter right there, and I just thought that was kind of fun. So I kind of like that. I like that. Then the next bit of that is that he goes home and his wife says, "Oh yeah, she kept you from beating him up." And
Yeah, he's like, I wanted to guilt trip her, and she's like, no, you did not.
That's not it. So I guess I kind of like that. You know what I mean? I like the way that played out and the way that worked.
Yeah, well, in that scene, it does such a great. One thing I've been talking about. Well, I guess I talked about this in Avatar, which the review for that's not coming out for a little while.
Stay tuned.
And I also talked about this in relation to Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Those are also not going to come out for a while.
Stay tuned.
So for you guys, this is the first time I'm talking about it. But one thing I've been talking about and thinking about a lot lately is just how important that opening scene is for really setting the tone and establishing the characters and stuff. And that scene does such a good job of being like, oh yeah, this is the guy who has a really short fuse. This is the guy who, like we see from the trailer, is going to grab the camera and yell, "Stop screaming," or "Stop filming me,"
right.
and screaming at the top of his lungs. It does such a good job setting that up.
Yeah.
I think my favorite scene is the car chase scene where he's in the trunk. I thought that was a lot of fun. From beginning to end, as soon as he gets in the trunk, I thought the camera work there was actually really interesting. And we've got just the subtle building of tension where they're slowly driving faster, and you can hear the two people in the front screaming that there are people following him. And then the bullets rip through, and he eventually opens it up and then closes it again. I thought all that was really fun, and I really enjoyed it.
It was a great way of showing a car chase scene, and you get that bit, in other movies where somebody's in the trunk, and it's like that thing, they're getting thrown around in there, right? And it was an interesting way to give us a car chase that we haven't seen, a way to show it that we haven't seen. I think it worked out good.
Yeah, it felt different, and it not only did it feel different from most car chase scenes. It also, I kind of feel like it felt different from like the rest of the movie, because the rest of the movie, he's really active. Like he's doing all the running and the jumping and the sometimes shooting and throwing of grenades. But in this, he's forced to be passive and just sit in the trunk and let whatever happens.
Right.
So yeah, I was trying to think of another option, but I think ultimately that one really kind of won out. So I think we're going to go ahead and wind things down. Before we get to the book spoilers, what are your final thoughts on The Running Man?
I enjoyed it. I'm into it. I want to watch it again, like we talked about in the car. I think that, it was a good movie, and I had a couple problems with it. Some of them are book related. So if you stick around for that, we can discuss that. A couple of them are the way it was edited together on those one scenes. But I do like the fact, like we said, I thought we were going to go in for this. I had the idea of a Kingsman action movie or something like that, where it's just this slick action and that kind of thing. And I do like that it wasn't that. I like that it slowed down at parts. It gave you stuff to think about, and maybe it was a little rote. Just the I'm going to go up against the man, and then the man changes the story and that kind of thing. Maybe that's pretty obvious, but I thought that it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So
I agree. I really liked it. Like I said a bunch, I was really hyped for this, but I was nervous that I was going to be let down. It's interesting. So far, in the past couple of weeks, we've had 2 action movies where I went in thinking there's a really good chance this is going to be bad. And both times I've come out and been like, that was a lot better than I thought it was. And both of them are movies where I've said, I want to see this again, and I would actually pay full ticket price to see it again. I would be willing to do that. I think that they're both really good. It is interesting. I would say go give it a watch,
Well, and they're both started with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's very true.
So-
That's the
so
secret
we-
sauce.
As long as you take any movie that Arnold did first, so when that Commando
I was going to make the
reboot
same
comes
joke.
around, I think we better be ready for it.
Well, did the Total Recall reboot do any good?
No.
I didn't think so.
That one wasn't the best.
It was a different time. 2012. I mean, come on.
We might have to visit that one at some point. Well, we still got to do the original Total Recall.
I want to watch the original one. I can't think of any other Arnold movies. Well, this formula does not hold for almost every Terminator movie ever, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe Terminator 2. How about that? But he was in that.
Yeah, those are great.
That formula doesn't work for Terminator 2 because he was in it. But.
And he's in the reboots too, and he's not in either of these.
Which, when we get around to Predator 2, we can thank Terminator 2 for that. So
All right, so at this point, we're gonna go ahead and wind things down. The review is over, more or less. From this point on, we're going to be talking about spoilers for the book. So if you don't want to hear those, go ahead and tune out, close the video, or, just mute it and let it run. Just boost our stats a little bit, whatever you want. If you're turning off now, then we will see you guys next week for more stuff. I don't remember. I think we're talking about video game adaptations. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Video games we would like to see adapted into live action movies or TV series. So make sure that you like and subscribe for more nerd content and commentary. Comment down below what you think of The Running Man, and we'll see you guys next week. All right, final spoiler warning. Dad, book issues.
Well, if you haven't left yet and you haven't read the book, read it. So here's the deal. Like I said, it was a good adaptation other than the inclusion of Michael Cera in that section. The ending that you don't like isn't in the book.
Okay.
Basically, the way the book ends is he flies the plane into the tower and it's done. So here's the deal. The wife and daughter, he's told that they die. We never hear anything different, so we assume they did. But the way that they die is in a real Richard Bachman way, which is just, it was a bad neighborhood and they got killed, right? So it's like they didn't get out of the neighborhood and they died, and he's told that by Killian, I think, the exec,
Josh Brolin,
and that sort of thing. And eventually, it just comes down to he just takes over the plane, flies it into the building, and actually the lady that he has as a hostage, I think she ends up dying in the plane too. And he feels bad about that, but it just happens. So.
Well, what are you gonna do?
But it is a very Bachman ending in that way. So when they add in all that section towards the back, when he comes in, and that's where I was like, no, they're not really just going to shoot him down, because in the movie they shoot him down and it's over, right? I'm like, that's not even a good Bachman ending. But yeah, so the parts that we didn't like, I guess a little bit about the way that wrapped up is it's not in the book. It was added by Edgar Wright.
Okay,
so
that's interesting, because here's the thing: I don't necessarily mind the fact that he somehow managed to live and make it through the explosion, and that he eventually meets back up with his wife and daughter. I don't mind that part. To me, it's just it's convenient, the fact that he managed to escape, and then nobody found him, and then he managed to get into the network building, which is presumably one of the most highly defended buildings in the entire city, country, company, whatever.
Right.
And then is just there and walks up. Like,
well, and there's a little bit to that too, is like, would the network really send the money to the wife and daughter so that they can get out and be safe and get the meds and that? So there's a little bit there that I was a little confused about, but like I say, and again, we've discussed it. It is a Bachman thing that nothing good happened.
Sure.
Right. And that in this instance, that was the case for the book, which was still a decent ending in the book. It was a sad ending, a thoughtful, you makes you think kind of thing. But
well, and sorry, it's kind of sad, but it's even like not really all that sad ultimately, right? Because he's still, obviously just blowing up the one building isn't going to crumple the whole thing, but he succeeds in burning it down, which I would imagine he says in the book too.
Right.
So it's the what's the writing term? It's like the failure of the succeeding in the primary goal but failing in the secondary, or something like that, where you win by defeating the enemy but you lose because you die in the process.
Right. And I think there is a little bit in there about maybe sparking a little bit of a rebellion against things and that sort of thing too. So I guess you're getting a slight goal out of that, but it is a different ending. And like I said, and if we play back anybody watching this now, go back and listen to Brennan and say, yeah, it really felt tacked on. Well, it was, because that whole bit, like I said, was, and that's where I'm saying that it is, bringing back the Arnold movie a little bit, because he's walking in guns blazing, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, which isn't how it happened in the book. I mean, he does take down Killian, and he does take down the network tower or whatever that is broadcasting things, but it's just a different way of doing it. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I do have to say, anytime you've got a plane flying into a building this day and age is problematic.
Yeah.
So I understand why they're doing that, and again, I also understand why they are giving us the ending that you like, which is, that he still takes things down and then it actually works out for him. Right.
I think the way to basically keep the same ending, but to just make it less messy, is to literally just take him out of that scene where he walks up into the network, right? Because his whole thing throughout this is like, one, he's like, I don't want to be a part of a revolution. I just want to save my family. He's like, I don't want to be the initiator. And then even in the end, he eventually decides, okay, well, I will be the initiator. But being the initiator doesn't mean you have to take active part in that.
Right.
I like the idea that he really does just become this symbol, the martyr, and he gets to just go live out his peaceful life, well, on the run forever because he's presumed dead or whatever, but still.
Yeah, it was a different way of ending things out. So those were and like I say, so if we're talking about this movie as an adaptation of the book, that's the difference, right? Other than that, it was a pretty good adaptation. And I think that it is definitely an adaptation of Stephen King's book and not a reboot of Arnold's movie, except for that last bit.
Right.
But I think that, but this didn't diminish my watching it all. And I would still, like I say, so if we're talking book spoilers, now you don't want to, there isn't a lot to glean from the book other than this movie even, which is something that we don't usually say. I mean, it is interesting, of course, the reason you read Stephen King stuff is the story, right? And the writing and getting into his head and that kind of thing. And it is somewhat interesting in that way, but it really is a pretty decent adaptation from that aspect, other than adding in a little bit. So
that's good. I'm always glad, because here's if the ending had been a little bit better, then I don't think that we would be like so upset about it, even though it differs from the book, because I don't even know what I was talking about this in relation to, but there was something where we were talking about how like the joy of adaptation is being able to see the seeds of something that you already know, but then still being able to be surprised. So having like a different ending or adding in like Michael Cera or whatever, they can make for fun changes that don't detract from the experience of being in an adaptation. It's just when it feels awkward or tacked on, where it's like, okay, now the adaptation is slipping a little bit, and now because of this, I'm not a huge fan of it. But
well, and that's the thing. We kind of talked about it with The Long Walk too. Is with Stephen King, you don't read Stephen King for good endings, but in the instance of The Long Walk, as I mentioned there, they kind of changed the ending of that a little bit, but it still works within the story. Like you say, we're getting a good adaptation of that story, and the ending that they did, maybe it works better in the movie, maybe it doesn't, but it still works for the story we've been given. And I think that this is a similar thing. Is it even has the same outcome from the standpoint that he's kind of taken down this show or whatever. Right. The slightly different outcome that he lives, but it's and he's got his wife and kids. Now again, there is a world where we could look at this movie and say that's all made up crap too. There could be the apostle is just throwing out this thing about the plane that never really existed. He had no way of getting down there, and he was shot down, but then they're using the Richard Lives to kind of build this mythology. And what we're seeing is that mythology, or that story passed down, that this is how it happened. There's multiple ways you could take that, just like the William H. Macy thing is whether that actually happened or not, who knows,
I think the apostle of it all is an interesting thought. I think you're giving Edgar Wright way too much credit. I don't think that was the intent, but I like that idea. And that sort of, continues along with my whole, rather enjoying him being a martyr. Because if he's not meeting up with his wife and kids, then he's definitely not in the network.
That's right.
But all right, I think we're gonna go ahead and leave it there. So yeah, it sounds like the book is pretty solid. It sounds like the movie's a pretty good adaptation. Go ahead and give it a read or a listen. I think we said it was what, like 200 some pages in the non-spoiler.
I do audio. I read with my ears.
That can't be that long of a read.
No, it wasn't. It was. I want to say that it's an 8-hour audiobook or something.
Oh, that's like
that,
just a work day.
It was lovely. It was a good work day.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and end things there. I'm not going to do all the plugs again because if you're still here, you already heard him. You know what to do. Do them, I guess. And we will see you guys next time for more. What did I say? What's video game adaptation? We'll be back to talk more about all things